put this back on mute just because what happens if
And so I want to talk to you about key trends in software user assistance, and I will make sure that your leaders get a copy of the slides for you to have, so you don't have to copy down information that you might see in this slide set, like my email and things like that. If you want to send me questions afterward, that's fine too. And I always enjoy talking about this subject because it's one that I'm always working on. So hopefully both experienced and maybe newcomers to the field will get some useful nuggets out of it. I'm always changing this up. There's always new things going on, so I'll try and point out some of the things that I've been thinking about lately. Before we get into that, I do want to thank Adobe. They've been a real generous sponsor for me to be able to do these webinars for STC chapters, both for my time in preparing the materials and also the GoToMeeting account that's used for this. It comes from their support. So definitely check out their products like RoboHelp and FrameMaker and Captivate. So I do want to thank them. For several years, when I've given this talk, I've started out with this slide because the idea of using a lot of different ways of providing user assistance to me seems to be really valuable. And I'm going to use this as kind of a jumping off point. Just the fact that there are just so many different ways that we can get information out to our customers, and recognizing that people have always had their own ways that they like to consume information, that I think we really need to embrace that. Unfortunately, I don't see a lot of movement generally that way. I still see a lot of organizations where they're just entrenched with let's say a Windows help file, a PDF manual, and a lot of times that's it. And those are definitely fine core components, but there's just so many other things that we can do to present information in new and different ways. And so that's kind of the theme of most of the elements I'll talk about today. Starting with one that's very non-traditional for technical communication in general, although we have a lot of people in the field, in our field, that specifically work in this area, but it's one that I just want to evangelize even a little bit more, which is video training. The idea that so many people today are used to, conditioned to, interested in seeing multimedia presentations of information, that I think you really can't ignore that. Frankly, I think that if you went head-to-head with video against printed procedures, that in most situations, the printed procedures, people reading printed procedures would probably actually have better comprehension overall. But if people are interested in watching videos, if they'd rather see that than not, and probably won't look at printed materials or PDFs, then you really have to think about that as being a viable alternative, if not maybe a primary way of presenting information. And that brings up the issue of a lot of new skill sets to be able to plan, storyboard, produce, and follow up with doing good video. But it's clear that it's something that's everywhere and that people are used to. And ironically, this seems to be mostly pushed because you see it a lot in smartphones, which have actually the smallest screen real estate that we've ever worked with. And this example here that I have is from AutoCAD. And I've just kind of watched this organization grow their videos over the years, and it kind of started as a skunk works. Some of you may even be possibly worked there or know people that work there, since it's just up the peninsula a little bit. But it's really grown, and they have so many good videos. They do a really good job at presenting that information, and not only that, but they embrace the integration with Google and the social media opportunities that come with that for measurement, for engagement. And so all around, I think they're a really good model at looking at of good ways to present that kind of information to software customers. And by the way, if you are doing videos and they're all being delivered from your site, you're probably missing a huge opportunity, because most people are likely to be looking for information through Google, and any videos that are hosted in YouTube are going to get indexed by Google very often, and so that's a good reason to at least co-host information on YouTube. Another area that I think is of growing importance is to embrace user communities, and there's a lot of different types of those. The slide I have here is Facebook, which I don't think is necessarily the best, most useful place to get out information about your products, but TechSmith, which happens to be a purveyor of popular tools for TechCom, they have Facebook pages for their different tools, and I think they do it just because they've totally bought into the idea that they want to create this community networked awareness, and you can just kind of see by that high number of thumbs up that obviously people are looking. But maybe a little bit more practical is what you see them doing with their Twitter feed, which is well laid out, the real nice design. It's an active community. They're always tweeting about their products. In fact, this Twitter feed is specifically for the Camtasia product to get out tips, and along with the tip, then that can have a link directly to the full amount of information, which is on their support website. One of the things that I think is a really interesting aspect of Twitter is that by definition, anybody who is following you wants your information. So let's see, the 5,000 followers of this Twitter feed have all volunteered to get information about Camtasia tips. And so how great is that? How many types of things are there in the documentation world where we know that people are actively signing up to get our information? And here you have it at a pretty much zero cost of entry. And it's just a matter then of having people that are assigned to stay engaged with that. So I'd encourage everybody to get involved with a Twitter feed for your documentation, even if Twitter isn't something you personally don't work with. It's not really about us. It's about what our customers are looking for. And again, feel free to jump in at any time, since we have this situation where everybody's in the room there. Feel free to make a comment, just interrupt me. Continuing on with the theme of community, but getting into a little bit different way of presenting that information. Here going from 140 character tweets to full-on articles on the Intuit Small Business blog. And what I like here is that this is, again, an alternate form of information in addition to all the procedures and reference information that Intuit provides for their small business solutions. But from this portal, you get into these articles which are very well written, and it's a different type of writing from writing procedure information. I was just talking about this with my students at Bellevue College. It's nice to learning about procedures and reference writing is great. That's core skill area, but it's nice to get off that safe spot and try different types of writing. And with something like this, you're really creating a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Although you can still integrate help type information. So there may be procedures buried in that prose. It's just not presented to people that way, and you obviously have a screen capture there. And I think this can be really interesting for people to try out, especially considering you can have a byline. As you see here, Lee Palavois, or probably had that wrong, but is able to get a recognition in a way that we often don't get in the technical communication field. And then related to what Intuit does, I think a nice thing that they do is have a portal for their documentation. Now, I would never consider this to be anywhere near like a primary method that I want my customers to have to go to find information. But I think it's nice if we present a lot of different types of information for us as a department to create our own portal for that information and have links to everything on there that we do, whether all our different documentation releases, all of our videos, anything that we might put together, and then somehow communicate that to customers, so if they know that if all else fails, by going to this one page, they can see this entire array of what you do. Besides the fact that I think it has a little bit of a benefit in that people internally are able to see everything that you do. I mean, we do a lot of things. It's just when you try to discuss it, at a quick pass by with somebody in the hallway, it's a little hard to get that across. But if you have a portal page, it really can show off all the things that you've done, even with legacy information. Now, something that works in concert with all of the social media activities is that search engines are a really big part of what ties things together and how people find information. And I don't have any data to back this up, but I'm definitely of the opinion that if you cataloged all of the times that people looked for help in software anywhere, anytime in the past year, that by far the majority of people looking for something about software would be initiated through a Google search. And they're doing that even if there's a context-sensitive question mark right in their face in the software. People are just so conditioned to getting answers to their questions through Google. And so I think it's really important to embrace Google and make that a part of your strategy as much as anything else that you do. I think embracing Google is even more important than having context-sensitive links in your software. It's just so powerful, and people are so conditioned to use it. And so assuming you buy into that thesis, which I said I don't have data for, what do you need to do? The first thing you need to do is make sure that all of your information is visible on a public-facing server so that Google can index it. If you're not sure what that means, you can talk to people at your company to figure out what that means. But essentially, you don't want your information only in proprietary formats like Microsoft Help. You want it to be in open source content, and you want that to be on servers that are open to the world, not siloed behind a firewall. And of course, there's security issues, and I actually talk about this as a separate presentation where I get into a lot of that. But the bottom line is you really think about getting your information visible to the public. And that may be then using single sourcing, so you might have a locally installed version of your help and then a web-based version. And then once you've done that, you can start refinements to make sure that when people do search for your information through Google, that you end up at the top of the hit list. And that's all about search engine optimization. And that's kind of a whole other story as well. But this is something that I think you really want to consider, and ideally the outcome for you is would be what you see here in this example from Microsoft, where it's like I use Outlook a lot, and so one of the things that I wanted to do is print a calendar in Outlook, and you type that phrase into Google, the top 2 hits are successful in 2 ways. So both of those hits, first of all, are links to Microsoft information. And so that's the authority figure. That's the position all of us want to be when people search for our information. We're the authority figure, not somebody writing in the back room of their garage about our product, which, by the way, can happen if you decide that you're not going to make your information visible through Google. And then the second thing is that if I click on those links, I get the right information. So that's a key element too. So through search engine optimization, I'm also providing good metadata so that Google can make the right interpretation and deliver the right information to our customers. And for a long time, Microsoft's been good about doing what I call a mirror output, where they have a single source data repository and they have a web version of the locally installed content. And for the most part, it's the same with just a few variants, such as with the web version, making sure that there's version numbers on every single topic, which is something you wouldn't necessarily need with the locally installed version. Because with Google searched content, people are dropping in out of context. So it's like they're falling onto a procedure page, dropping in on a parachute. They don't see any of the other topics around it, none of the navigation and anything. Frankly, it may not even be the right version of the information. For example, with Outlook, there's 2003, 2007, 2010, now there's going to be 2013, and all those procedures are a little bit different. Okay, so before I move on, I'm going to take a sip of water, and if anybody has any questions, this would be a good time for that. All right. Well, so I've been working with mobile apps for about 3 years now, and it's been really interesting to work with it. I've found it to be a very different way of thinking about what it means to be a UA professional. I've had to throw away a lot of the things that I always did in the past, but I'm also able to bring in a lot of skills that I see that other people in the mobile development arena don't have. And so it's been an interesting balance. So I just wanted to talk about a couple things related to that, because I've found that such a high percentage of the it seems to me that a very high percentage of the people in the technical communication field work with enterprise level software, which is still primarily desktop bound. But on the consumer side, that's totally shifted, and as many people as not are doing most of their activities, getting most of their information from mobile devices. And I think the future is pretty clear that that's going to continue to increase like that. And so at some point there's going to be a big flip on the enterprise side as well, where a lot of things are being consumed through whatever mobile devices people bring to work. So I think it's important to be thinking about what our role is in this area. On my blog site, I put together a mobile UA screenshot gallery, which has 100 and some screenshots, and I'm always collecting them, interesting different examples of good and bad, and I think it can be useful to look at it. If you kind of go through the whole gallery, probably if you were comparing against what most people are doing today for their desktop help, and you look at the screenshot gallery, which is all different kinds of apps, including corporate apps, not just mainstream consumer stuff, I think the single biggest thing you see is that 95% of the help doesn't look anything like traditional desktop help. And I think that's an important thing to absorb, is that even though our popular help authoring tools promote ways to have a mobile output, for the most part, I think that's just junk. It's not what people want. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. But you might want to take a look at that screenshot gallery, kind of see how things are laid out. For example, just on the one that's expanded there for Ancestry.com, their help has really good information in it, and it's presented at the right time, and it feels like it belongs to the rest of the app, and you never feel like you're being forced into some help system. And part of what works is that overall the app only does certain things that the full-blown version does, the things that people would likely to be doing on their phone instead of doing at the desktop. And I use that product, and I can see how well it works out to really think through that, because I really have different needs when I'm using it from the phone. It's usually when I'm with my family and I want to point something out. It's not when I'm doing heavy-duty editing of our family tree. Now, just kind of for a counterexample, I gave Microsoft some props earlier on, but in this example, I don't have as many good things to say. These screenshots come from the help that you would find in the latest version of Windows Phone, version 8, for some of Microsoft apps, and this is related to the camera app that comes with the phone. And those two screens that you see there represent two windowfuls of information, windows full of information. But that help topic, actually, if you scrolled through it, would be 7 of these panels, just in one topic. It just goes on and on and on. And interestingly, this is on, you can view this through a desktop browser, and through Media Query it's presented in a different way in a desktop browser, which is the right thing to do. When you look at it on the desktop browser, everything looks really good. It looks kind of how you would expect help topics to look when you're looking through a desktop browser, except that when you get it here where it really belongs, where it's the place where people are really working with it, it's just so unwieldy. It's so long. There's just the density of information just feels overwhelming. But you can clearly see, if you look at this, that the point of view of the author is still based in that desktop browser world. And in fact, I would really question whether the person actually ever authored or viewed their content in this environment. Probably at some point when they're doing the responsive design, they just made sure that it looked okay. but there wasn't any attention to the idea that we really need to start writing information differently for this type of environment. And so that's something I think is really important for all of us to think about. Another example I'm showing for a different reason, but it's also a Microsoft example. And by the way, I'm not picking on Microsoft. It actually used to be that I only showed iPhone and Android examples, and now there's actually more and more things from Microsoft to show on the mobile side, so that's part of the reason that I do that. And this is from their Outlook app that runs on the iPhone, which for the app was a great app when it came out a couple months ago for me, because I use Outlook all the time and I have an iPhone, and so now I get the two integrated. You can get context-sensitive help by tapping on the tab bar, and you can, well, it's kind of hidden on that screen, but it's sort of like down there. Refresh, sort by date, and there's help. It doesn't matter what I'm doing in the app, whether I'm in Mail, Calendar, Tasks. The only thing that help will do is take me to a master. I'm sorry, no, that's right. That was a different example. So the help here is going to take me to information about Mail, which is the right thing to do. But the big mistake it makes is it's dumping me out to the mobile Safari browser. So I'm losing my connection to the app. Now I'm going to have to try and figure out how to cycle back and forth between apps, which frankly isn't easy on any mobile phone. It's not easy on the iPhone. I mean, sure, you can, I know how to do it, but it's just a pain. And there's no reason that help information can't be included, even with HTML and CSS, within the native frame of the app. And so anytime you go out to use the browser, whether it's Safari, Chrome, IE, I think that's just a major fail. And working with a UX company here in the Seattle area, I get to see a lot of experiments. And anytime people have to deal with hierarchies of any kind, anytime they have to manipulate information significantly on a phone, it's a real deflating experience. And then when you think about that, this isn't even what they really want. This is help information. They're actually getting farther away from where they want to be anyways, which is in the app.
Hey, Joe, it's Misty.
Hi, Misty.
Hi. I have a question for you, if I may.
Sure.
We've been trying to find good examples of enterprise or business-to-business applications with some kind of help on phones, and we haven't found any. Do you have any good examples of enterprise or B2B mobile apps that do it right?
Well, actually, there are a lot of them out there, and I list them in my book, and they're also in that mobile UA screenshot gallery that you can look there. One of the things that is interesting, like for iOS with the iTunes Store, the only things that bubble up to the top are the really big hitting apps. But like they say, there's 900,000 apps out there. If you go down the Fortune 100 list and just type those names in, you find apps that are like internal apps for just about all of those companies. Now, whether things are necessarily good or bad, that's a little bit tougher to figure out. But they're definitely out there to look at. For example, let's see, Ingram Micro, Raytheon, Geico. Let's see some others that I just Humana, uh, a, an analytical tool that REI uses for internal purposes. I'm just going through some of my list. IBM has one specifically for remote security administrators. I'm just seeing what else just I have convenient here. Coaction. So anyway, I guess the short answer is they're out there. The longer answer, I'd have to, pick through those with you. But I think the screenshot gallery might be a place to start. I hope I answered your question okay. I sort of didn't, but there are examples of that out there.
Yeah, I don't think our team thought to look at things that were internal to a company, so that's a great idea, and your gallery too. Thanks.
Well, see, one of the things that I noticed early on when I started researching this, I was like, okay, so you have all these Windows apps. There's just hundreds of billions of dollars in development going into enterprise software. I think there's got to be stuff going on out there, and then I started finding things, and I realized that how companies are moving to mobile from their enterprise apps is think of them as like sidecar apps that help people extend their specific work activities away from the office and breaking the tether. And so, for example, you might have an enterprise level system in a corporation, but then human resources gets an app that lets them do what they need to do as they walk around doing interviews with people at the company. Or in a manufacturing environment, people on the factory floor will be able to carry around a subset of the engineering system that they would normally work with at their desk. And so that's the kind of thing I'm seeing, and so kind of be looking around for that type of thing. So this screen that I have here just is just showing some help for tablet apps, and tablet apps definitely have enough screen real estate to be able to do more documentation. I mean, just that little bit, those square inches end up giving you enough room to actually present a lot of information. However, people who are using tablets have probably also been using smartphones, not necessarily, but in both the tablets and the smartphones have an ecosystem, a design aesthetic that's very different from traditional desktop apps. And so even though I could put a lot of help information into a full-sized iPad window, I probably wouldn't do it. I still want to do things in a way that fits this new ecosystem. And as I've been working on the second edition of my book, I've kind of coalesced into what I call the 4 C's, which are just principles to think about for user assistance with mobile and small screen devices. And the first one is contextual, which is that anytime you're going to provide information, it should be directly proximate to where the people are working in that app, in that small screen real estate, and exactly at the time that they need it. And it's essentially rejecting the idea that any kind of help system that's in a separate part of the app is going to be useful at all. I think you can put it there if you feel that makes that makes you feel better. But if you did usability testing, I would seriously wonder what percentage of people are going to be going to look in that external help system. So that's one part of it. Conforms, that's about the idea that the way that you present your information should look like everything else in the app. It shouldn't look like stand out as a help system. It definitely shouldn't be in that external browser. People like being in their app. They like staying engaged with their app. And so it's important to do that. And then both for contextual and for conforms, one of the other things about mobile, as in thinking about the word mobile, is that it's not just a small version of the desktop. People are on the go. People are using this as they walk through a train station. And any kind of help information you're going to provide just has to be just right there, directly in their face, exactly where they want it to be, and not require them to look for the answer to their question. Getting to conditional, this is an area where I see opportunities to do things in innovative ways where programmatically you reveal information to your customers when you think they need it or when you notice that their interactions would maybe require that information. So for example, the first time people start an app, you may have give them a choice to get some introductory information. I think that's perfectly acceptable to do that, to give them the option. As they work with the app a little bit longer, they're making interactions. Those interactions are going to a server, because there's almost no mobile apps that aren't regularly communicating with a back-end side on a server somewhere. And you know that they've done a certain thing 12 times, and so then maybe you pop up a tip. Did you know that if you press this instead of that, you would have a better experience? And then finally, that everything needs to be concise, that excessive wordiness just doesn't fit at all. It just has to be a real attention to, at a granular level, to the words that that we present. Kind of bouncing away from that, just to something new that I'm working on that I don't have a lot of answers for, but I thought I'd toss it in here, since this is the San Francisco group right there in the middle of everything that's going on for software. So I tried to do a Google Hangout earlier this week, and it kind of worked. We had like 6 or 7 people. It was kind of fun to talk specifically about help in Windows 8.1, or well, Windows 8 generally. And I've been looking at it ever since the first preview came out a year and a half, 2 years ago, or whatever. And there's not a help facility for the modern apps, the new touch-oriented side of Windows 8. It's similar to what we had in the desktop. So we had HTML help there. There's no analog to that on the well, actually, they're called Windows Store app now. Just another. If you could feel like where Microsoft gets the names for things, sometimes I can't even understand it. But anyway, so these are Windows Store apps, and there's no built-in help system that we can tap into to present information. Everybody's kind of on their own, and so I've been looking at what organizations are doing. And so this example from eBay, this is the first screen. So if you were in the selling area and you swiped down to the right to reveal the charms, if you go to the settings charm, that's that gold panel that you see there. And Microsoft does have a best practice where they're saying that the settings charm is the place to have help information or links to help information. So here's the scenario. You swipe down, the charms comes up, you click on settings, tap on settings, and you get this gold panel, and then this can be populated with whatever the app wants it to be populated with. And in this case, they decided to have a link called support. So you click on support, and that brings you to this panel, which I don't really think is needed, but they have it. And so then you click contact customer service, and then finally it does a snap. So it does a 2/3 snap to the left and shows the main help page for eBay. So it's not context sensitive, and they didn't even bother to create a web page specifically for Windows 8. With responsive design, a media query could easily know what device type was requesting it and put a better help page in there. But anyway, that's what eBay did. Then looking at Evernote, similarly, swipe down to the right, click on the settings charm, and in their settings area, they call it customer service. Click on customer service again. Another panel, I don't know why you need all of this, because from that other panel you could have gone right to guide to Evernote, but then again, snap to the left to display a web page. In this case, getting started with Evernote. And so that's just sucking it in from their server. But in this case, they actually are using media query, because you can see up at the top, getting started with Evernote for Windows 8 Touch. So they have tutorials for different device types. So at least they went that step with this. Is anybody there working with any Windows Store apps for any purposes yet? I mean, as for professional purposes?
Not even amateur.
Not even amateur purposes, okay.
I mean, we're building apps for Android, but I don't think Windows is involved directly like this.
Yeah, I can't but think that it's gotta happen. I mean, yeah, like I say, it's all this billions and billions of dollars in Windows software development on the desktop side, and if they get this right and people start using the devices, it just makes sense that you would be treating this the same way you'd be treating the Android and the iPhone, and then there would be a reason to support it. So I have to think it's going to happen. It's just probably going to be a little slower than I would have thought. But all right, well, I just wanted to pop that in there. Just also mention there's always so many new devices coming up all the time. That picture in the top right corner, that's from a Tesla sedan, and I took that picture. I was at the mall, and I sat down in the Tesla to check out their console system, and that entire area, including the gauge, is all digital. So that's all a screen. In fact, there's no actual controls. Like, most of our cars, we have physical heater controls and everything. They just have fake controls that are rendered as digital, and you use your touch for that. But the screen overall is just gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's a big screen. You can have a big display of apps, and as much as it may not be in our best interest to be playing with the internet as we're flying down I-5 at 65, 70 miles an hour, actually 80 miles an hour on 101. 35 miles an hour on 101 during rush hour. But it's going to happen. All the automotive manufacturers are figuring out how to get apps into the cars. So then the question is, how do we support that for all these different devices? And not only that, but how do we deal with different interaction types? for most of my career, it was the mouse and the keyboard. That's the only thing I had to worry about in terms of people working with the software. But now we have touch, we have voice, we have hand gestures for the Connect. We still have the stylus. The remote control isn't going anywhere anytime soon. And in fact, as we get into more home entertainment system apps, that remote is probably going to be the way that most people are interacting with those apps. And near-field communications as an emerging technology. And so then you have to think about, what does that mean for the information that we're putting out? Do we have to worry about that? And then we have these different platforms that we haven't worked with before. And it makes me think back to 1989 when the mouse and the GUI really got popular, and suddenly I had to explain to people how to use the mouse with my software in addition to just how to use the software, because a lot of people didn't know how to use the mouse and they didn't know how to interact with the mouse controls in different types of software. And I think we're in that situation now, at least for the next year or so. In this example for near-field communications, if you hold the phone against the ad, it will load a Lexis page on the phone. But they realized that nobody would know to do that, and so they had to have this physical representation and a procedure to explain how to do that. And maybe in 2 or 3 years you won't have to do that, but obviously that's the kind of thing we have to think about. And another interaction type popped up. I just saw this the other day, where Tobii, which is I think a Swedish company that makes eye tracking software, mostly for usability testing, and it's really good stuff. They made an eye control or an eye tracker that lets you control the Windows 8 desktop, the Windows 8 operating system from your eyes. So instead of tapping, you're just going to stare at something, and it's going to activate that. And I want to try it because it sounds really freaky. But this kind of stuff is just every way we could interact is going to happen. And just to show a practical example of how this is relevant to me, here's 2 procedures that you'd find in Windows 8 about how to do things in Windows 8. And I'm assuming both these procedures were written by Microsoft teams. But they have 2 different points of view. If you look at the one in the top left, it starts out and says, swipe in from the right edge of the screen, tap Settings, and then tap Change PC Settings. Then in parens, if you're using a mouse, point to the upper right corner of the screen, move the mouse pointer, and so on. So the point of view is clearly that touch is the most important for us to get across, but we still then are going, as our backup, going to talk about the mouse. You go down to the lower right, and what do you see? Step 1, tap or click. Step 2, in the left pane, tap or click. Step 3, tap or click. So here the point of view is that touch and the mouse are equal. And I think, at a minimum, your organization needs to have a discussion about this to decide which way do you want to do it. I don't think you really can do it both ways. To think about what your strategy for dealing with this. But interestingly, Windows 8 actually supports all of those different interaction types that I presented earlier. And so they're already outmoded here. If somebody was using voice or Connect style gestures or that Tobii eye control. So where do they go from here? They go tap or click or say or wave to open Windows Update. I think now's the time where these kind of discussions need to happen. And I've put together a what I call a generic vocabulary using terms like select and move and scroll to try and get away from this in some cases. Because I mentioned single source authoring earlier. I think with all these device types and interaction types that you really need some kind of single source tool now for your content so that you can effectively present the information in the right ways on different devices using responsive design and adaptive content principles. Like in this example, the information is deprecated going from the large screen to the small screen, but it's done intelligently, thinking about what's important for people using those different devices. And then if you're doing some kind of single sourcing, hopefully your authoring tool or your content management system can then give you the output for the different devices. So here you have a procedure topic where it's slightly different for the laptop, the phone, and let's say the TV. And notice in this example that my authoring tool automatically did changes to my interaction verbs, click, tap, and the icon for select, which is called hover in Connect language.
Hey, Joe?
Yeah.
This is Misty again with another annoying question. So this assumes that people are reading the content from the same device that they're performing the action, but our metrics are telling us that people are, I don't know why because you can't use it, but they're accessing our desktop portal help from their mobile devices. So even this kind of filtering won't really work because they'll be looking at the wrong instruction anyway.
Well, it depends. I mean, so using media query, which is the scenario you see here, a media query is getting information from the device as to specifically what device type it is. Every device announces what it is every time it does a request, HTTP request. And then the media query, which is embedded in your content, then attaches the appropriate style sheet for that particular device. And that's why you see the different versions here. So if you're doing that, then if people are using the app and they click help in the app, the media query is going to give them the right version of the help. Now, if you were on the iPhone, even if you would be able, if you knew, you could type in the desktop URL and go back to that information, but that's not the likely scenario if you've been using a media query. Did that help, or did I just go down a completely wrong track there?
No, that makes sense. So in this scenario, there's really just one repository of content, and the display is different using media, or whatever you called it.
Yeah, every page is just one logical file,
right? And
there's 4 different style sheets that represent different device types.
Yeah, so those style sheets are doing a lot more work than they used to. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I think having a solid understanding of cascading style sheets is critical now. You know, even to the point of hitting the local community college and taking a 4 or 5 week night course on that or something, if that's what it takes. But yeah, I think it's really important, and it's the way essentially that all the good mobile apps are delivering information that's different from their desktop equivalent. They all use media query for that because it just works so well.
Okay, Joe, I think, though, the scenario that Misty's talking about is somebody sitting there at their desktop, and when they want help, they pick up their iPhone and look for it. Is that right?
Well, sort of the other way around. They're working on their iPhone, and they just, out of habit, go to help.salesforce.com in their sad Safari browser. So, but with just one repository of information, then you get rid of all that.
Yeah, if somebody knew that was there and they didn't know that you had a better solution, then yeah, I mean but I guess I would try to make that better solution visible in some way, at least, through one instance when they first start using the app or something, so they know that there's good help tailored for that device.
Yeah, I'm pushing our team to unfork our content before we get too far down that road, so there's just the one repository, so that's really great.
And like I said, it just potentially gets more complicated as time goes on with more device types, more interaction types. So
Joe, if you're going to try to do some kind of single sourcing, have you thought about exactly what you can abstract and what has to be specific for each bank, and what the abstractions are that you can work in the higher level single source?
So what do you mean by the abstractions?
Well, let's see. Back very, very long ago, when we used to have all sorts of printers, and you had to write a separate driver for each printer, somebody said, "Okay, let's make this."
Is that Richard asking the question?
Yes.
Come on, no, come on. You're just too old. You got to retire. Come on, you're talking about drivers. Come on, man.
If you want to pay me to retire.
All right, I'm just giving you a hard time.
All right. So basically, the idea I'm trying to get at is there some abstract level at which you can create whatever help, user assistance, whatever you need, and then transform it as you go down the line into the different forms you need? Or is it, or do you just have to be different for each one right at the top?
Okay, now, so I got a better idea of what you're getting at, and like one of the things I talk about in another talk is I get into I mentioned responsive design and adaptive content. On the adaptive content side, to me, I think it's really important for us as technical communicators to consider these different device types and identify information types that are appropriate for them, and then look at our content and see what kind of adjustments we have to make. And then with our authoring tools, our content management systems, we may tag things with conditional text so that information will be presented in different ways on different devices. Like, for example, I think it might very well be the situation where you might have a 3-sentence paragraph that you're using in a desktop procedure, and then you look at what you need in the mobile sense, and you may even have to completely rewrite that into one more concise, possibly more limited sentence. And then in your content management system or your authoring tool, you're going to have both of those statements, and they're going to be tied to a specific device type. And then when the publishing goes to output, it puts the right information in the right place, kind of the way on this simple example you see how the verbs were interchanged.
So you're really saying there are two different things you have to do about having different devices. One is to think about the capabilities of the device, and the other is to think about the context in which you use it.
Right, that's correct. And it's the second part that most people don't think about. So the kind of moving things around and shaping it so that it works right, most people get that. But then the idea that, okay, this person working with Amazon.com as they go to catch a train, their head is in a completely different place than if they're sitting on the, somebody popped up there, hello. But now you can see everybody. Yeah, that's cool. That worked out good. So they're walking to the train station. They're using Amazon, but it's a totally different use case. And I've found that Amazon has thought about that kind of thing in their app. And so the app is actually architected to work differently on the mobile device. I mentioned that Ancestry.com app does that. It doesn't try to be a small version of the desktop. eBay is like that, where they recognize that people aren't doing the same auction activities through the mobile device. And so you need to be doing the same thing in terms of information and thinking how to better present that in those different situations.
So is there an abstraction that will help you take that context and think about it at a high level so that then when you project a different devices, something can automatically figure out what's right or wrong with that context?
You know, I think that's like the heavy lifting where the specifics are important, where, I mean, you're a good technical communicator, I'm a good technical communicator, your business or what you deal with is a lot different specifically than what I deal with, and we use our skills, but recognizing that we need to do that, as you call it, an abstraction, that needs to be an important part of the process. And unfortunately, the examples going back to the traditional help authoring tools, the developers of those tools aren't at all thinking about that. It's just, we're dumping this thing that's made for the desktop and we're dumping it down into a small version, and technically it works. They're all good at dumping it down into a small screen, but effectively it's just garbage. And it's not really all their problem. It's us trying to take a shortcut and not recognizing that the two entities are very different. Well, let me move on, and I got just a couple of last minute. Are we all right on time? Because I could cut it here if you're about at end of things.
We're good for a few more minutes.
Okay. So these are all miscellaneous items from here on out. One of those is, embedded user assistance has been around for a long time, but I still think that's such an important way to think about the primary place to support your customer is, I believe that every single word on any piece of software anywhere should be owned by TechCom people, because we're good at coming up with the right words and phrases. And so, I really encourage everybody to push hard to make that your primary solution point in software. In this screen from I mentioned Ancestry.com, the small version, and so here's like the desktop version, and even there they do some good things with embedded text where, for example, you have a drop-down that provides useful information on the why do we ask. Their hint lines are really good. So under last name it says, for women, use a maiden name. Well, it turns out in Ancestry.com, that's really important. Using the maiden name instead of the married family name helps you get more information searches going in the software. And so, little touches like that where it's not just saying type in the last name, it's giving an example that's really useful. So I definitely encourage everybody to get in those early design meetings so that you can carve out screen real estate to do that type of work. And then I like bringing this screen up because most people don't realize that Apple publishes PDF print style manuals for all their latest devices, including the iPhones and the iPads. They're really good manuals. They're well written. They have nice color, descriptive graphics, and they print out really nice if you want to do that. And everybody looks at Apple as a cutting-edge leader, and so I think this is a great example if somebody's giving you a hard time about doing this type of work that, Apple does it. And the thing is, Apple is really good at recognizing that their customers like to get information in different ways. So they provide user assistance in a number of different ways. This is one of them. Maybe half or 1% of their customer base might use this. Well, if you have 300 million customers, then 1% is a lot of people looking at a print manual. So, obviously it's worthwhile. They would be paying somebody to do that. And then finally, I really think that there's a greater opportunity for us to push out information about things that we're expressing in our documentation through emails to customers. And I like to use this Pandora example because for me it was a really successful one. So after I signed up for the software, I got this email, and this email is only about information that helps me do better with the product. There's no marketing crap in it. There's no upgrade stuff. If I click on those links, it takes me to help information on the website, and it's all really useful information. And yeah, I think there's an opportunity for us to do more of that, assuming we can pry the keys to the customer mailing list from the marketing and sales department. But anyway, that was the last one I wanted to talk about. And then just finally, I wanted to mention our event we have coming up in Newport, Rhode Island. So it's all the way on the other side of the country. But on the other hand, Newport is a really cool town. So if you've never been there, it's a really cool place, old seaport town, and it's where all the big robber barons used to make these unbelievably huge and lavish mansions, which are now open as museums. And so on the Sunday, we're going to do a group tour that's included with the registration, a group tour of Newport, and then we'll go off and visit some of the different mansions. And then the second 2 days are filled with educational sessions. And if you type in the STC discount, that would just be $695 for all 3 days. So even if it's not of interest to you, possibly pass that along to your colleagues. Help me get the word out about that. And that's at writersua.com. I listed my resource directory and my blog, and also I wanted to thank Adobe again. Other than that, I'll make sure you get the slides. Any final questions or anything?
It's open. So.
Yeah, no, I think we're good.
All right.
Anybody from who else is logging in? I just want to make sure that they...
Oh, yeah. Let's see. That was on the text chat. Let me just... I didn't mention that, but I didn't see anybody. It doesn't look like anybody typed anything in there. But yeah, send me an email if you have a question. Other than that, I'm glad we did this. It's kind of fun. Hopefully you were able to get some good usefulness out of it.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, if anybody's participating, if you want to write a quick chat right now, otherwise I'm sure Joe asked you if you email him, he'll be able to answer your questions. Thanks to you very much for speaking.
Yeah, all right. Thanks a lot. I appreciate that. All right. Well, I'll sign off now, and hopefully I'll see you in person sometime. I have a little bit more personal interaction that way. So thank you again.
We'll see you in Berkeley.
Yeah.
Berkeley is doing a Joe Walensky webinar on the 28th.
Very cool.
We're not doing it anywhere. We're just people are signing up. We have 25 slots, I think, and you can sign up from your house. Or you can sign up from an auditorium if you want, and bring in lots of people. But we have 25 slots, and if you go to the Berkeley chapter website, you can find it. And
what's he talking about?
I forget what he's talking about. I don't think it's this one, but it's
Adaptive content?
something similar. But I forget. If you look at the Berkeley website, I think that information is up there now.
So if you get the slide, are you going to send a link to us, or should we just go to the STC?